Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Women's TV show. My name is Galit Ventura Rosen, and I am co-founder of Everyday Woman. My favorite thing in the world to do is interview women all over the world that are really out there helping others. That is no exception to my guest today. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Galit. It's wonderful to be here.
I'm excited to jump into your topic today, tips for protecting small businesses. I think that that's something that most of us really overlook. And I know that those that are listening and watching will get a lot out of today. So let me share a little bit about you and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Wendy Byford is a corporate America escapee who took early retirement to start her own business. For the past 19 years, she and her husband have been forming LLCs and corporations and teaching their clients how not to blow them up. Since their clients are primarily solopreneurs and small business owners who need legal support at affordable rates after their entities are formed, Wendy also sells LegalShield legal services and IDShield identity theft protection. Wendy's passion is helping solopreneurs and small business owners grow their businesses by using the right mindset. So I love all of that. I'm excited to jump in. So take us away, jump right in so we don't lose any time. What are these tips that we can protect our small businesses with?
Okay, perfect. Well, as you know, we've done probably 30,000 filings for about 20,000 clients setting up their LLCs and corporations. And we've seen so many things happen with small business owners as they've got started. So what we've done over the years is we've actually put together a whole course to teach people about their LLCs and how to look after them. But the thing that really got to me as we were watching people trying to progress was the fact that when they were building their professional team, they understood they needed a CPA. They understood that they needed a bookkeeper. They understood that they might even need a financial planner if they got off the mark, really fast. But the thing that they were leaving out was legal support. And so when we looked at this, we would go to people and say, why do you not have an attorney on retainer? Why do you not have an attorney that you can call? And of course, the answer was always, we can't afford it, right? The retainer is too big. The hourly amount that we have to pay is too big. And I would say, well, when you're dealing with your clients, do you have a contract, right? If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So don't, tip number one, if it isn't written, it didn't happen. Make sure that you get a contract, make sure that you do written consents for agreements with you and whatever partners you have. Everything should be in writing. And people say, well, I don't have the money for a contract. They're charging me $2,000 to write a contract. So I borrowed my friends from 3 states over. And I would say, okay, well, did you have a current attorney here look at the contract to make sure that it's valid in your state? Well, no, I can't afford it. So my husband and I got really concerned about the fact that people were asking friends instead of qualified attorneys, that they were going on to their website and trying to look up answers. And of course, we know the information on websites is, let's say it's old, it's conflicting, it's hard to understand, it may not be correct. Sometimes it's just outright misleading. And we thought they were going to get into a lot of trouble, so we started looking for something. And we found LegalShield. LegalShield allows clients to get the protection and the support that they need at a very affordable rate so that they get big company legal support for a small business budget, which is really what they need. So you do need to have attorneys look at contracts if you get them from somewhere else. Tip number one. Tip number two is please.
Let me stop you real quick.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about tip number one.
Okay.
I really want today to be about if they choose to use LegalShield or not, that they need to recognize the things they have to be doing in their business. So first and foremost, let's talk about everything in writing. I love that you said that's coming from somebody that's been in commercial real estate for over 27 years. We do everything in writing, and I don't care if you're my sister, my brother, or my son, or my husband. Everything is in writing. And I think that a lot of times what happens in society is us kind-hearted people that trust people really truly believe when a relationship is going good that everything is going to be fine. But we don't understand is that relationships go bad. So let's talk about that for a second, Wendy. Everything in writing, okay? There's actually, I mean, in all honesty, verbal contracts are very difficult to stand up in court, and none of us want to end up in court. And Wendy and I are not attorneys. We're just sharing experiences. And it's really hard for that to stand up in court. And nobody wants to think like that. Well, I'm going to end up in court one day. But don't you think in some shape or form, you kind of have to go to the worst case scenario to be prepared and protect your small business?
It's kind of like a marriage. You need to plan for the divorce before you get married.
Which, by the way, is really hard for people, right? Because nobody wants to get married to get divorced. So that mindset is really hard for people. So share a little bit more about that.
So it's a matter of, as Galit said, of being prepared, right? You never want the worst case scenario to happen, but you just need to be prepared and then work for the best outcome. So that means that, yes, you need to have a contract with clients. A handshake is not going to do it, because if you do something that that person takes offense to later on, and they say, well, I'm going to take you to court, as Galit said, your handshake is not going to stand up. It's going to be a he said, she said, and you're not going to get anywhere. So things need to be in writing. And if people object to that, then you need to find out what's at the bottom of that objection, because a contract is a normal business document. And if somebody's objecting to signing a contract, then there's something weird going on. So you really want to get to the bottom of that before you go any further and invest your time and your expertise in that person. So make sure that everything is in writing. And if you've got business partners, make sure that you do written consents and you put them in your company record book, because that documents everything of legal, tax, and financial significance. And if there's ever a difference between what you remember and what your partners remember, you can always go back to the written consent and say, no, this is what we agreed to. Also, another tip, read your operating agreement if you've got an LLC.
Well, let's go back a little bit further, Wendy, and say, have an operating agreement.
Yes, that's true. Have an operating agreement.
Please.
And sometimes people say, well, I'm the only person in the LLC. Why do I need an operating agreement?
You still need it. Yeah.
Okay. It is needed even if you are a solopreneur. Why? First of all, it shows anyone that is auditing you that you are a professional running a professional business. Every professional business, every professional LLC is going to have an operating agreement. Every professional corporation is going to have bylaws, right? So you need to have those in place. And if you ever bring a partner on board into your company, you want them to read the operating agreement or read the bylaws and sign it, so that they agree that they will work with you in the company according to the rules that are laid out in that operating agreement. It is so important that you have that document. If you don't have one, get in contact with me and I can show you exactly how you can get one. Now, the operating agreement needs to be read because there may be things in there that surprise you. I have a client, bless his heart, he had there were 5 of them in this LLC. Mm-hmm. In the letter that we send with the company record book, it says, and have an attorney review your operating agreement, after you've read it, in case you want to make changes. They didn't do anything. They didn't read the operating agreement. They didn't have an attorney look at it. So one of the partners wanted to pull out, and the operating agreement has an elementary buy-sell agreement in it. They didn't read that. And he said, but the terms of the operating agreement are this. And they were like, so this fellow called me and he said, is what he's saying correct? And I said, yes. Did you read your operating agreement like I told you to? Well, no. And I said, well, I guess you're going to have to buy him out according to the terms in the operating agreement.
Let's talk for a minute about why so many people don't read the things that they sign, and there's so many reasons why people don't go to attorneys. It's not just the cost. It's also attorneys have a bad rap. And there's a lot of things out there about, oh my God, attorneys, right? They're going to charge you to breathe. But it seems to me that sometimes people even get overwhelmed. And that's why you're talking to me about this legal thing where you should have a legal, I call it a team member. You should have a legal team member. You should have somebody on speed dial. And you should, the same reason we have business insurance, right? In case something happens.
Well, you should never sign anything that you haven't read. I mean, how many times have we been told that from the time we were kids, right? Never sign anything that you haven't read. But the problem is that you could be sitting in a finance manager's office because you want to lease a car, right? And he's breathing down your neck, right? Because he wants you to sign the document. And we're nice people, right? We don't want to keep him waiting. So we read the first page and then we scan the second page. By the time we get to the third page, we're reading through that sucker, trying to figure out where we're supposed to sign. Nobody's reading the fine print. Okay.
Totally.
Fast forward. Friend went to a well-known dealer to rent a car and to lease a car. And he said to the finance manager, looks like a really great contract, looks like a great deal. I'm just going to send it over to my LegalShield attorney.
Okay.
Right? So he did. The attorney read it and he said, you got a great deal. Absolutely love it. You did a great job, but you may want to look at what's on page 4 here. He said, in the fine print, he said, I can't figure out what this is. It's $750. Can't figure out what it is. So the guy went back to the dealer and said, look, my attorney said to look at this because he can't figure out what it is. What is it? And he said, oh, it's a landing fee. And so he says, what's a landing fee? And so the sales rep said, well, that's when the car comes in and we take off all the plastic and we take all the paper mats out and we run it through the car wash and we deliver it to you. And the guy said, okay, I tell you what, you pay me $750 and I'll do that. Well, they took it off of the lease. Now, over a 5-year lease, $750 is a lot of money, right? And that was saved simply because he had the LegalShield attorney look at the contract.
Someone that was experienced and knows what to look for.
Absolutely. And so you always want your attorney to look at everything before you sign it, because you just don't know what's in that legalese, what's in that fine print, right? You may know the broad strokes of what they're telling you, but what's actually in writing. And that, before I had LegalShield, I actually got caught that way. I had said to somebody, well, I don't want a 5-year lease. I only want to do this for 1 year. And she said, oh, don't worry. If you don't want it, just call the company and they'll cancel it. And so I stupidly signed it. Well, they came back and said, no, I sold the house after 3 years. And they came back and said, no, you're responsible for the rest of it. And I said, but the sales rep said, and they said, it's not in writing. And they were absolutely right. It was not in writing. So now I don't sign anything without my LegalShield attorney looking at the contract.
And in all honesty, having somebody else look at it that's more experienced is going to take that overwhelm from you, and it's going to feel better. So what other tips can we give today?
Okay. So there are lots of times when you have questions. Should I, could I, would I, what would happen if, can they do that to me? All of these types of questions. Take hiring your first employee. Now, I came from corporate America, right? So I had hired and sometimes fired a lot of people. And when I had to do hiring for the first time for my own company, I was really scared because I didn't have a Fortune 100 company behind me anymore. It was just me. And I didn't know what the rules were. I didn't know what any of the regulations were, my responsibilities, my rights, anything when I was hiring that person. A lot of times people will go to their Uncle Joe who has a TV repair shop down the road and say, well, what did you do? Right? That's not the right place to go. Right? Wouldn't it be so much better and give you so much more peace of mind if you could just pick up the phone and call your attorney and say, hey, I'm going to do my first hire. What are the things that I need to be aware of? What are the things that I should do? And have them guide you through that. Wouldn't that be so much better? Right? I didn't have that. And I really wish I had. It would have allowed me to sleep so much better at night. Yeah. Also, we have employee issues. I had an employee who was basically making everybody's life miserable. And it didn't matter what I said to her. It was kind of her personality. Mm-hmm. And so I called my business attorney and said, what do I do? And he said, I'm going to get you an employee expert to talk to. Okay. Now, that made me feel so much better because then I knew that it didn't matter if she was going to come back and try to sue me for, unlawful firing or whatever, right? I would have all the rules and regulations laid out. I would know exactly what it was that I had to do ahead of time, how to document everything exactly, so that if she did try to do that, I would have everything lined up and just hand it to my attorney. That just gives us so much more peace of mind and makes so much more sense. And I know that sometimes people say, and Gallet, you probably get this too, right? I have a friend who's an attorney. My sister's husband's an attorney. My cousin 3 times removed is an attorney. Here's the issue. If they give you legal advice, then you automatically become their client, and whether or not you're paying for it, they're responsible now for the information they've given you. Okay. It's not fair to them, especially if what you're asking is not their area of expertise. An estate planning attorney isn't going to know business law. I'm sorry. You know, he may be a brilliant estate planning attorney. I've known several of them.
It's
And they
not
are
possible for one attorney to know all the laws for every type of law. It's just not humanly possible. That's why most of them are specialties and they specialize in different law. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. So, and you wouldn't want your business attorney trying to counsel you on what your estate planning should be, right?
of course, of
Right.
course. No, I
So,
love it. I love everything you've shared. Thank you. I love it. I love it so much. So, in all honesty, at the end of the day, what happens a lot with probably a lot of your clients that you work with being solopreneurs and small business owners is that they go and they start a business out of something that they love, out of some kind of passion, right? That's what happened to you, Wendy, and your husband. And then you don't really know from here to there. And we're not trying to be rude or disrespectful, but how could you? You've never had a business. You don't know exactly what you're doing most of the time. So you're basically saying, look, guys, look at these things and now work with an attorney. So tell us a little bit about how people can get a hold of you and learn more about LegalShield.
okay. The easiest way to get hold of me is connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm there. You can read through all of the stuff that I have there. You can read through my posts, and then let's have a conversation. We'll set up a time. I have a Calendly link on LinkedIn. You can just book a time, and let's have a conversation. I want to get to know you, to understand what it is that you do, what your family is like, what your employees are like if you have them, and let's just have a conversation and see what it is that you truly need and what's going to fit for you. This is not a hard sell. Nobody wants to sell anything that you don't need. But if we can figure out what it is that you do need, then perhaps we can give you some peace of mind and give you some empowerment for your business.
Yes. And like you said, I think my favorite part of all of that is peace of mind. Who wants conflict? Who wants problems? But it happens. It comes up. I've been in business 27 years and I've had to use attorneys multiple times, not because I wanted to, many times because I had to. So I'm very, very familiar. It's just how it works, especially when you're putting yourself out there. So I love everything that you're sharing. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your area of expertise with us today. Thank you for caring about others protecting their businesses. I appreciate you, Wendy. Thank you.
Thank you, Gallet. It's been an absolute delight.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening to another episode of the Successful Women's TV show. My name is Galit Ventura Rosen, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.